called my lawyer. She called the cops. What started as a simple land purchase turned into the most bizarre property war you've ever heard. I'm Luke Porter, 38, county forester, and 3 weeks ago I bought 190 acres of pristine woodland at a county auction. Clean paperwork, clear title, fair and square. Or so I thought. The trouble started on a Tuesday morning when Paula Crowell came marching down my access road wearing a homemade HOA security vest, clipboard clutched like a weapon. At 52, Paula was the self-appointed neighborhood dictator who'd convinced herself that years of walking trails created ownership rights. "You cannot park here," she announced before I'd even shut off my truck engine. "This is private HOA property." I stepped out and looked around at the ancient oaks I legally owned. A narrow trail wound between trees, marked with Paula's handwritten signs reading, "Community Nature Path." She positioned herself like a human roadblock, arms crossed, eyes blazing with the kind of rage that comes from being told no for the first time in years. "I'm Luke Porter," I said, pulling out my deed. "And this land belongs to me now." Paula's eyes went wide, then narrowed to slits. "That's impossible." She snatched my papers, scanning frantically for some flaw that would invalidate my purchase. "This says you own everything from the main road to Deer Creek. That includes our walking trail and community picnic area." "That's right," I confirmed, taking my deed back. "The county auctioned this surplus state land." I submitted the winning bid. Her face cycled through several shades of red. "You can't just buy community land and kick out residents who've been using it for years. We've maintained this trail system, invested in picnic tables and benches. We've created something beautiful here." I had to admire her passion, even if it was completely wrong. "I'm not destroying anything, but I am the legal owner. Any improvements need my permission." I pulled a hammer from my truck, along with laminated copies of my deed and survey. The sound of metal hitting wood echoed as I nailed the documents to a sturdy oak. Paula watched in horror like I was vandalizing sacred ground. "You cannot do this. This forest has been designated for community use. We have zoning approval." While hammering, I noticed something interesting: old concrete survey markers buried under years of leaves. These weren't Paula's wooden trail stakes. These were official county boundary markers, the permanent kind installed during professional surveys. "I'm not in your HOA," I told her clearly. "I never was and never will be. This is my land. If you want to use it, you need permission like everyone else." Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly, worldview collapsing in real time. "This isn't over," she finally declared with soap opera dramatics. "I'm calling my lawyer and the county planning office. We'll see how long your little power trip lasts." That evening, my surveyor emailed, found discrepancies in boundary markers. The concrete posts don't match wooden stakes marking the trail. Need to talk tomorrow morning. The next morning brought a certified letter addressed to current illegal occupant, already a red flag. Inside was a demand letter on fake Woodland Hills Community Association Legal Department letterhead. Wrong fonts, duplicate dates, P.O. Box return address instead of real office. According to this masterpiece, I owed $400 in forestry maintenance fees dating back 3 years, before I'd even known this property existed. The letter threatened immediate legal action and property seizure if payment wasn't received in 10 business days, signed by Paula Crowell, President and Legal Representative. I was still laughing when neighbor Nate Jensen knocked on my door. Mid-40s, quiet programmer who'd been watching Paula's antics for months. "I've been documenting her activities," he said nervously, pulling out his phone. Screenshots showed trail maintenance fees, community assessments, emergency landscaping costs, all flowing directly into Paula's personal bank account instead of any HOA fund. "These payments aren't going to the HOA," I said, studying the routing numbers. "They're going straight to her checking account." "That's not the worst part." He swiped to HOA meeting minutes missing required treasurer signatures. Without proper financial oversight, none of these fees were legally valid. Paula had collected over $3,000 from residents in 18 months, promising improvements to areas she didn't own. She tried the same thing with my backyard, Nate explained, showing photos. Claimed part of my garden was community space and charged me rent for my own land. But the real revelation came in contractor emails. Paula had been planning luxury amenities, discussing site preparation and working around the trail to maximize buildable space. She wasn't just stealing maintenance money, she was planning major construction on land she didn't own. 2 days later, Paula called an emergency HOA meeting right at my forest entrance. Folding chairs arranged in a semicircle, handwritten poster board reading, "Emergency Community Meeting Regarding Illegal Land Seizure." About 15 confused residents showed up, wondering why they were sitting in chairs next to trees instead of someone's living room. One woman caught my attention, calm authority that comes from years of community politics, studying Paula's setup with obvious skepticism. Before the meeting started, I tested something that had been nagging me. Paula's new sign reading, "Private HOA Park," in fresh green paint. I pressed a tissue to the corner, paint came off wet, staining bright green. She'd literally made this sign yesterday. "Ladies and gentlemen," Paula announced like she was addressing the UN, "we're here because our community is under attack. A hostile outsider has illegally seized our beloved forest preserve and threatens to destroy everything we've built together." She gestured dramatically at me. "Luke Porter claims to own this land, but he's really planning to sell our forest to private developers." Several residents turned to stare, confusion spreading. Paula had been busy spreading her version of events. That's when the skeptical woman stood up. "Excuse me, I'm Nora Harris. I've lived here 12 years. Before we start throwing accusations, can you show us the original HOA charter giving us ownership rights to this forest?" Paula's demeanor shifted like a poker bluff getting called. "The charter is being updated by our legal team, but we have established use rights creating legal precedent for community ownership." "Actually," I said, standing with my phone displaying photos of those buried boundary markers, "I can clear this up." I zoomed in on concrete posts with metal survey caps. These are original county survey posts, not wooden stakes. According to these official markers, your trail sits entirely on land I purchased legally. The crowd shift was immediate. People murmuring, pointing between my screen and Paula's handmade signs. Nora examined the photos closely. "These look legitimate. Do you have the official survey?" I handed her the surveyor's report with professional measurements and legal descriptions. While she read, Paula's composure unraveled. "Those markers were moved by vandals," she announced desperately. "Real property lines are marked by our newer stakes, professionally installed by our landscape maintenance team." "Your landscape maintenance team?" Nora repeated slowly. "The same team charging residents trail maintenance fees?" "Paula, are you saying the people collecting money from us also moved official government survey markers?" Heavy, awkward silence. Paula opened her mouth several times, no sound emerging. "County survey markers are federal property," I said calmly. "Moving them is actually a crime. But more importantly, I have receipts from the county auction, deed transfer, and clear title search. This isn't community land sold from under you. This was always county property next to your neighborhood." Nora handed back my documents with approval. "This looks legitimate. And frankly, it explains why our HOA fees keep increasing while we never see improvements to actual community property." She faced Paula directly. "We need serious discussion about financial transparency and what our money's actually paying for." The meeting devolved quickly. Residents asked pointed questions about where maintenance fees went, why Paula held meetings on someone else's property without permission. Several people left, shaking heads in frustration. Throughout it all, Paula insisted she was protecting the community, voice getting higher and more desperate. As the crowd dispersed, Nora approached privately. "I've been suspicious about Paula's financial management for months. This property dispute might be exactly the catalyst we need for real HOA oversight." She glanced at Paula frantically packing chairs. I have a feeling this won't end quietly. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I checked the wildlife camera I'd installed near the property line for deer monitoring. What I found on the memory card spiked my blood pressure dangerously. Paula had been busy. Footage from 2 nights ago showed her sneaking onto my property around midnight, carrying a small shovel and canvas bag. She wasn't just hanging signs, she was burying wooden stakes with reflective tape near legitimate boundary posts, manufacturing evidence several feet from real survey points. The premeditation was frightening. Those newer stakes she'd mentioned weren't professionally installed, they were fraudulent markers she'd planted under cover of darkness. When I called the county planning office at 8 a.m., the response was immediate: no permits existed for any construction on my property. Not pending, not approved, not even applied for. Paula was planning unauthorized development on land she didn't own. The breakthrough came from Mrs. Taylor at the post office, who approached with a manila envelope. "You're the fellow with forest property. You need to see this." Inside were glossy promotional flyers: Woodland Luxury Retreat, opening soon in nature's paradise. Artist renderings showed rustic cabins among trees, spa pavilion overlooking creek, guests enjoying yoga in unmistakably my forest. Paula's name listed as project director, phone number for advanced reservations. Grand opening scheduled next month. Mrs. Taylor's daughter worked for the printing company. She thought it strange because she knew you just bought the land. But the flyers were just beginning. Attached contractor emails discussed site preparation for luxury amenities, foundation work for multiple buildings, utility installation, landscape modification. Paula wasn't planning simple cabins. Her business plan included main lodge with commercial kitchen, individual cottages with private bathrooms, spa building with treatment rooms, conference pavilion for corporate events. 8-month construction timeline, first phase beginning immediately after property acquisition finalization. County business licensing revealed Woodland Luxury Retreats LLC registered 6 months ago, Paula as managing partner. But the business address wasn't my forest, it was state park land 10 miles away. She'd registered using public land coordinates, probably figuring nobody would check until her retreat was operational. Even more disturbing, Paula had been accepting deposits from customers, reporting this as legitimate income. Real people paying real money for reservations at a facility that didn't exist on land she didn't own with permits never issued. That evening, Nate brought more troubling news. "Paula's making house calls, telling people you're planning to clear-cut the forest for a shopping center. She's asking residents to sign a petition supporting emergency injunction against your development permits." The petition was misleading masterpiece, referencing preventing destruction of community green space and protecting established recreational areas from commercial exploitation. Anyone signing without reading carefully would think they supported environmental conservation, not realizing they'd be challenging my legitimate ownership. But Paula's confidence finally reached breaking point on Thursday morning when I woke to heavy machinery rumbling through forest. From my window, small excavator making its way down main trail, followed by pickup loaded with construction materials, parade of cars carrying apparent dignitaries, investors, people with professional cameras. Paula was holding her dedication ceremony whether she had permission or not. I jogged to the forest entrance finding an impressive scene, if it hadn't been completely illegal. Paula had erected temporary pavilion decorated with balloons and banners reading Woodland Luxury Retreat Grand Dedication. Catering truck setting up refreshments, local politician practicing speech about supporting innovative ecotourism. Paula stood center stage in business suit and official ribbon-cutting sash, directing setup like she owned the place. The excavator was already digging foundation holes near creek. Contractor unloading concrete forms and rebar, another crew clearing underbrush for guest cottage sites. The coordination was staggering, entire construction team and public ceremony without owning land, obtaining permits, or having legal authority. Most surreal was watching Paula greet guests like she was welcoming them to her private estate. Local business leaders, tourism board members, county economic development representative. She'd convinced legitimate community figures to attend dedication for a business existing only in her imagination. That's when cavalry arrived, 3 county vehicles with emergency lights flashing. Officer Ruiz led convoy, followed by building inspector and county assessor. Excavator operator noticed officials first, immediately shutting down, sensing something was wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, building inspector announced through megaphone, this event is shut down immediately due to unpermitted activity on disputed land. All construction equipment must be removed and all personnel must clear the area. Reaction from Paula's guests was predictable: confused murmuring, nervous phone calls, general scramble toward cars as people realized they'd attended illegal construction project. But the biggest revelation was still coming. While inspector documented violations and Officer Ruiz took statements, county assessor approached with clipboard and serious expression. "Mr. Porter, we've completed the boundary survey you requested. There's something significant you need to know." What he showed me was the knockout blow I hadn't seen coming. According to official county survey, Paula's own HOA clubhouse foundation extended 12 feet onto my property. The building where she'd held meetings, collected fees, and exercised authority was partially constructed on land belonging to me. She'd been conducting illegal business from a structure that was itself illegally built on stolen land. Every HOA meeting, every fee collection, every decision made in that building had been on my property without permission. Paula's body language collapsed when the assessor delivered this news. The confident authority she'd maintained through weeks of legal battles, fake documentation, and fraudulent schemes just evaporated. She stood in her ribbon-cutting sash, surrounded by construction equipment and embarrassed community leaders, watching her operation crumble. "This is impossible," she repeated, staring at survey documents. "That clubhouse has been there 15 years. The HOA built it on community land with proper permits." But county assessor was unmoved. Property lines were property lines. Survey markers didn't lie about where buildings stood. Media representatives who'd come to cover retreat dedication suddenly found themselves documenting a more interesting story. Paula's guests watched in stunned silence as Officer Ruiz explained the HOA would need my written permission to continue using their own clubhouse. The woman who'd spent weeks claiming authority over my forest was now standing on my property, needing permission to access her own building. Within an hour, Paula's triumphant dedication had transformed into public relations disaster being photographed for posterity. I presented 3 key pieces of evidence to officials: buried concrete markers proving legitimate boundaries, illegal fee collection totaling over $3,000, and completely unpermitted retreat project Paula had advertised to paying customers. When reporters asked about trail maintenance fees, Paula accidentally confirmed she'd been collecting money for maintenance on my land. "I'm not in your HOA," I told Paula directly as she watched officials document violations. "I never was. And now you're standing on my land asking for permission you'll never get." Instead of arrests, Officer Ruiz required Paula to immediately cease unauthorized activities and remove signage from my property. The symbolic moment came when Paula had to personally take down her HOA signs while cameras recorded her humiliation. The practical resolution unfolded like bureaucratic comedy delivering perfect justice. County officials issued Paula triple penalties for fraudulent fee collection, over $9,000 in fines and restitution. Her business registration was revoked, facing additional charges for accepting customer deposits without permits or ownership. The HOA governance crisis resulted in complete leadership restructuring. Residents voted Paula out, implemented financial oversight preventing future schemes. Nora emerged as interim president, bringing transparent management the community needed. Since Paula's clubhouse extended onto my property, the HOA needed my annual written permission, compliance obligation reminding everyone who held legitimate authority. New leadership approached with formal, shared access agreement. My response was generous but firm: permission granted for $1 per year, understanding the HOA would help maintain conservation standards for forest trails crossing both properties. Paula's illegal retreat center had been replaced with legitimate conservation partnership. The community restitution ceremony became unexpected celebration of accountability. Residents received full refunds for fake fees, documented in public ledger available for annual review. New HOA leadership posted reimbursement schedule while Paula watched from sidelines, no longer holding neighborhood authority. On my property purchase anniversary, Paula approached with the first annual clubhouse access request form, requiring her personal signature acknowledging my legal ownership of land beneath their building. Her hands trembled as she signed, officially recognizing authority she'd spent months trying to deny. Maybe the real lesson is that boundaries aren't just legal, they're personal. When someone keeps pushing yours, you either draw the line or they draw it for you. Ever had neighbors who couldn't respect your property? Let me know in comments. And if you like this story, hit that thanks button. Take care of your space, protect your trees. I'll be doing the same down the trail.